I,
Yeah.
I wanted to get in really quick to like why I think that the mind is non-physical. You said you went over some seemings. Maybe you could go over like a phenomenal conservative approach to that. But you give some reasons in the paper. You give three reasons: mental states have qualia, mental states have intentionality, and then at least some minds have free will. Can you flesh out the first one? Like why would having qualia be evidence for the non-materiality of the mind?
Yeah, so qualia, according to Thomas Nagel, are what it's like to have some experience. Um, as he described it, he says the fact that an organism is conscious means that there is something it is like to be that organism.
Mhm.
As contrasted with like, there's nothing that it's like to be this table, or nothing
Yeah.
it's like to be a tree, even. Um, and when you think about it, like, well, how can that be a physical property, right? And there's this famous thought experiment by Frank Jackson, right, where there's like a person who has never seen color and they're in a completely black and white environment, and then and this person learns all about brain physiology, and they all
Yeah.
learn. She learns about what happens in the brain when a person sees a blue object and what neurons fire and whatever. And
Yeah.
okay, and then the person leaves the room and for the first time looks at the sky, and does the person learn something new at that time?
Mhm.
And it seems like, well, at that point, the person could learn what it's like to see blue. And it just seems like there's no way that you know what it's like to see blue just from studying the brain,
Yeah.
and like learning all the physical facts about what the brain does. So it seems like that's not a physical fact.
Yeah, so there's irreducible quality facts that we can't see from the third person perspective, but that we all have from the first person. Um, yeah, so I mean, I like that. I think that's right. But what do you make of like some physicalists say, well, Mary's the person who was locked in there. Mary gained a new concept. It wasn't new language, but now she just gained a new ability to attribute this qualitative blue to all the physical facts that she had about blues and skies. What do you make of that?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, so it's true that she gained a new concept. She gained a
Okay.
concept of that particular qual. Okay, but it's also true that she gained new information,
Mm,
right? So because like her previous information was compatible with the experience not having that qual, right?
yeah.
Like just think about hypotheses about how it could be, what it could be like to see blue. There are different things that it could have been like, and she couldn't have ruled any of those out. Now, so it's true that she also didn't have the concept for entertaining those, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the relevant, interesting part is even if she'd had the concept, she wouldn't have known,
Yeah.
right? Which one was the actual way that it's like to see blue?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I also like Tom Nagel's article, "What is it like to be a bat?" Which, okay, already referred to, but because he makes this point about how how it works when somebody reduces something to something else,
Hmm.
and like you figure out that heat is actually the kinetic energy of these molecules that are in rapid random motion.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a particular way that heat feels. And when you explain what heat really is, you do not have to explain the particular way that it feels, because you can just say, well,
Uh-huh.
that's just the effect on human observers of the real phenomena. The real phenomenon is these molecules moving around.
Hmm.
And then the sensation that you have is just the effect that that has on your mind. Okay, so then you don't have to explain that part. So then, good. Okay, but now if you're trying to explain qualia and you say, okay, so qualia is really, this brain state, whatever, the qual of seeing blue is really this brain state. You can't say, well, now I don't have to explain what it feels like because that's just an effect on the mind of human observers.
Yeah.
I can't say that because that effect on the mind of human observers is exactly the target phenomenon that I'm
Right.
supposed to be explaining.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't. It's irreducible. Yeah. It doesn't. If you reduced it away, you're not talking about the same thing anymore. You're not talking about the. I would say the quale, but maybe qual is the right way. The
Oh yeah,
qual.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, okay, so you brought up Nagel and his super famous paper now. I just wonder really quick if you think that if bats do bats have an immaterial soul, since there is something that's like to be a bat?
Yeah, I assume so. I
Okay.
assume that the bat has experiences. And I say assume because we don't know any of these things for certain,
Oh yeah.
right there.
Sure, they could be like I think Descartes said they were like automata and stuff, right? So like maybe they are philosophical zombies or something.
Right, yeah,
But it
yeah.
doesn't
I
seem
mean,
likely.
like seems improbable, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But and by the way, like I don't know, like for all I know, maybe you're an automaton.
I know. Yeah,
So
right.
that's possible, but highly unlikely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, awesome. So we have the qualia argument, which I think is great too, because Jackson himself, I believe, is a physicalist, and then like backed away from his Mary argument because it was too strong. Like it led to this dualism type stuff, which I think is
Yeah,
fantastic when you have an argument too powerful for your own theory.
I was disappointed when I learned that he converted to physicalism or something like that, and I didn't really get why.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to speculate on that, but I do, but I won't. Okay, so two, mental states have intentionality. So what work is intentionality doing to motivate dualism?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is just another weird property of the mind that doesn't seem physical, right? The property of being about something,
Hmm.
right? So, my example was I'm imagining a dragon.
Yeah,
Um, there aren't any dragons in reality, but this thought is about dragons, even though there aren't any.
yeah,
All right, and then it's just kind of hard to understand how that's a physical property. Like being about a non-existent thing is a physical property. I mean, even being about a real physical thing is also is also hard to understand. Like it doesn't seem like physical states are about anything.
yeah,
I say in fairness, there are physicalist theories of intentionality. I just don't think that I don't think that they plausibly capture the phenomenon, right?
yeah,
So, like, I hear the physicalist theory, and I always go, yeah, but that's not sufficient for it to actually refer to anything.
yeah. I think Dretsky has like he goes in for like information theory and says like there's information in everything, and information is about stuff. So then like maybe maybe this rock is about something because it's encoded information that it's like it's
Yeah,
gray or something.
yeah,
What do you make of that?
yeah. I mean, yeah. So, like the notion of information, like this state of affairs carries information about something else.
Hmm.
Like I think his notion is just like in order for that to be the case, there just has to be like this law-like connection whereby the two states co-vary.
Yeah,
And I just think no, that's not sufficient for one thing to be about another, right?
yeah,
Like okay, so you put like a thermometer in your soup, and the thermometer carries information about the soup. So, and that sounds true. But here's
hmm,
another thing: the soup carries information about the thermometer.
yes, yes, right.
And then also, by the way, the left half of the soup carries information about the right half, right? Because they're in equilibrium with each other.
That's right.
Um, but that that is not sufficient. I mean, like the left half of the soup is not about the right half or anything.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think Searle makes that point about like observer relativity, or information that is it's relative to an observer. Yeah, maybe it is observer independence and relativity. That like a tree, if you cut it in half, you can see the rings, and the rings like tell you about how old the tree is. But that is like it's relative to an interpreter interpreting that. And like you said, the rings could be about the tree, but the tree could be about the rings, and there's like this. It all depends on
Yeah.
how you're picking out that information, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I think it sounds plausible to say this thing carries information because when we observed it, we would actually have an intentional state in our mind.
Right, right,
Right
right.
now, of course, this is not Dresky's theory, right? Like his theory is not supposed to depend on there being an observer, right?
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think it's sort of like the plausibility of saying that that's information sort of unconsciously depends on our knowing that when we saw it, we would have the intentional state.
yeah.
Right?
That's good. Yeah, I think that's right. Just one more thing on this. What about like propositions? Maybe you. I actually don't know what you think about propositions, but if they are abstract objects, seems like they're about things. They have intentionality, but they're not. I mean, I would want to say maybe they're mental states in the mind of God or something. But what do you make of propositions. Do you think they are abstract objects?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I just normally treat them as abstract objects,
Hmm.
but I haven't thought that much about whether I should be thinking this, right? Like there's an abstract object, maybe it's like a possible state of affairs.
Uh-huh.
And I know there are like, there are ways of talking about propositions that don't sound like, really the way you talk about a possible state of affairs, but maybe that's just like a superficial linguistic phenomenon.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, so we got intentionality, and at least insofar as we have mental states do have intentionality, and so that's a reason. Since physical things don't seem like they're about things, seems like we have a we are or have a non-physical mind in order to have the intentionality that thoughts have. That sound right?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds right. Yeah,
All
we're,
right.
we're
All
in
right.
agreement. Yeah.
Awesome. I love the imagining dragons thing. I think that was like intentional, right? That was like because there's a band, Imagine Dragons, but
Oh,
maybe not.
no, I don't know about that
Okay, so it wasn't.
band.
Nice.
So,
All right. All right, great. Okay, and then this last one is interesting. So at least some minds have free will, and I've heard this one a lot being in Christian circles. A lot of there's this internal debate in Christian circles between Calvinism and Arminianism, and Arminians hold to libertarian free will, and a lot of Calvinists don't. Most Calvinists don't. So I've heard this one a lot,
yeah.
and they always mean they say free will, but they mean libertarian free will. So I wanted to get your take on that. Does this condition, like, does it necessitate libertarian free will, or can you hold just a non-physicalist compatibilist view of free will?
Oh, I mean, so if you have a compatibilist view of free will, like it is easier to reconcile with physicalism.
Yeah.
Right. So I think on a compatibilist view, it's not a separate problem, separate from the intentionality and qualia. Right?
Okay.
Like if you could explain those, then you can have compatibilist free will.
Okay.
Right. Like, but obviously you do have to have intentionality because you have to have intentions and desires and whatever
Right.
and reasons.
Yeah.
Um, so I do have a libertarian view about free will.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, it's not just that determinism is problematic. It's physicalism is problematic for
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because it's sort of like, even if you introduce indeterminism, it's still hard to see how you have freedom, right? So,
Yeah.
like, given that all of our actions are, so there's just a physical object. You think there's just a physical object, and so I'm entirely made of atoms, and so everything that I do, it would seem, is determined by the behavior of the atoms that I'm made of,
Right.
and and not the other way around, right? That is, the causation goes from the things the atoms are doing to what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and not downward from the macroscopic to the microscopic.
Yeah.
Okay, so then if you think that, it's hard to see how I have free will. The atoms don't have alternatives, or if they do have alternatives, they only select randomly among them per quantum mechanics, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah. I love this point so much. One of my professors and friends, Brandon Rickabaugh, has developed this argument. I think he calls it mental drainage, where if you have this physical cause and this mental cause for your mental state, then there's overdetermination, and it all drains down to the physical. And then, just like you said, it seems like this is all reducible to the atoms moving in your head, rather than like the intentions or reasons, responsiveness of the agent. Uh, which, I mean, that's awesome. I love that. So I think that's fantastic. How this seems to me like, so this is in Christian circles, we call this the argument from reason. And it's against physicalism, sometimes against determinism based on how you cash it out. But so that's really, if you're a Christian, I'd be like, yeah, okay, this is like basic argument from reason type stuff. But you're not, and you
Yeah.
have this argument. Like, where did you discover this argument? Like, how do you have this argument?
Yeah. Why do I believe this without being a Christian? I don't know, because I just thought about it. Like, I mean, it's not like sometimes I would, like Christian philosophers and philosophy students often like my work.
Yeah.
And, I think about why that's the case. And I think they're, even though I'm not one and like, not theist really,
Right.
But I think the reason is that I have common sense, and neither I nor the Christians have been overwhelmed by certain ideologies in our age,
Yeah.
right? So, like, part of what the Christian thinkers are saying is just sort of like common sense stuff that's been rejected because of another ideology,
Yeah.
right? Like the ideology of scientism or something like this.
Hmm.
And the Christians have resisted it because they have their own ideology,
Right.
and I've resisted it because I just don't care about social pressure. And so, um, right?
That's
But
awesome.
I mean, like, this is an intuitive thing to think, like that you have a mind, and that explains your behavior, in a way that's not just a bunch of particles bumping into each other.
Right.